What if I told you that your goodness is the very weapon your enemies use against you? That the world rewards those who are strategic, not those who are kind? Today, we uncover why being good, in its pure form, is the worst mistake you can make. In every age, people suffer not because they are weak, but because they are too good. Today, we face a problem that destroys careers, friendships, and ambitions: the belief that goodness alone guarantees success. This false belief has ruined more lives than cruelty ever has. People admire goodness, but they rarely reward it. This is the uncomfortable truth that most refuse to accept. When you act with pure goodness, without strategy, you signal to the world that you are safe to use, safe to manipulate, and safe to blame. Those who wish to advance, those who hunger for influence, and those who seek advantage will always target the good person first, because the good person is predictable. And in the arena of power, predictability is the first weakness a clever enemy looks for. Imagine a man who acts only with honesty and kindness, believing that such virtues will guide him to success. He trusts openly, he forgives quickly, and he speaks with sincerity even when silence would serve him better. He thinks others see the world through the same moral lens he does. But this very purity becomes a map for those who study him. His honesty becomes a tool to extract information from him. His kindness becomes permission to take without fear of retaliation. His forgiveness becomes a guarantee that betrayal will have no consequence. What he celebrates as virtue, others quietly label as vulnerability. The world does not operate on goodness alone. It operates on interests. Every person acts for their gain, whether material, emotional, or social. And when a purely good man steps into this world, he behaves as if interests do not exist. He expects that because he means well, others will respond in kind. That illusion is shattered the moment someone realizes they can gain more from using him than helping him. And once such a person appears, others soon follow, because exploitation spreads quickly when one person discovers the benefits of taking advantage of the good. In politics, in relationships, in business, in friendships, those who lead with innocence are the easiest to control. They reveal too much too soon, believing transparency is always the right path. They avoid conflict, believing peace keeps them safe. They sacrifice their needs, believing generosity will earn loyalty, and slowly they become the silent workhorses that others ride to advancement. They carry burdens that are not theirs. They solve problems they did not create. They apologize for things they did not do. And they do all of this because they fear that being less than perfectly good might make them unworthy of approval. But approval is one of the most deceptive rewards in the pursuit of power. It feels like progress, but it achieves nothing. A good man may be liked by many, but he is respected by few. Respect is built on boundaries, decisiveness, and the willingness to say no when others demand yes. Pure goodness, however, refuses to disappoint anyone, and in refusing to disappoint, the good man disappoints himself most of all. Consider the rulers Machiavelli observed, those who acted with virtue but without calculation. They lost their states not because they lacked goodness, but because their goodness blinded them to the reality of human ambition. Their enemies were not evil, they were simply practical. They acted swiftly, using deception when necessary, forming alliances when useful, breaking them when essential. Meanwhile, the virtuous ruler clung to honor, even when honor placed a knife in his enemy's hand. A leader must understand this. Goodness without power becomes a sacrifice made on the altar of idealism. But power, shaped by calculation, gives one the strength to wield goodness effectively. Power and goodness are not enemies, they are tools. The problem arises when a person insists on using only one tool and abandoning the other. If you use only goodness, you invite those who use only cunning to dominate you. If you use only cunning, you create enemies too quickly. But when you combine the two, goodness in appearance, calculation in action, you become unassailable. People say they want leaders who are good, but in truth, they want leaders who are strong, and they want leaders who protect them, not leaders who hesitate at the threshold of difficult decisions. When you are purely good, you hesitate because you want to avoid harming anyone. But when you hesitate, someone else acts faster, someone else decides more sharply, someone else steps into the space you leave open. And in the realm of power, the one who acts first often wins before the good man has even realized a contest began. This is why Machiavelli insisted that a ruler must learn not to be good when goodness leads to ruin. It is not a rejection of virtue. It is the understanding that virtue must bow to necessity. A person who is purely good is like an open gate that anyone may walk through. A person who is strategically good is like a fortress that opens its doors only when it benefits the kingdom. And here is the paradox. When you stop being purely good, when you set boundaries, when you act with calculation, when you refuse manipulation, you will actually be respected more. People trust those who protect their own interests because they know such a person is capable of protecting others as well. They trust someone who cannot be easily swayed. They follow someone who values fairness, not self-sacrifice. They listen to someone who can say no without guilt. Pure goodness invites exploitation because it requires the world to be something it is not. Power demands calculation because it acknowledges the world exactly as it is, competitive, strategic, and driven by self-interest. And when you recognize this truth, you do not become cruel, you become prepared. You become someone who chooses goodness, not because you are forced into it, but because you have the strength to use it wisely. Many believe that to be loved is the pinnacle of leadership, that if people adore you, they will follow you loyally, support your decisions, and defend your honor. Yet history, observation, and reason tell a far harsher truth. The ruler who desires love above all else is a ruler who is doomed to fail. Love is fragile. Love is conditional. Love is a weapon others wield against the naive. To seek love as your primary goal is to surrender the most essential tool of leadership, authority. When a ruler prioritizes being loved, he compromises his decisions. He fears discontent, hesitates to punish wrongdoing, and avoids actions that would provoke resentment even if those actions are necessary for the state. In attempting to be adored, he sacrifices justice, discipline, and strategic foresight. A good-hearted ruler will delay difficult decisions, temper punishment, and grant indulgences that weaken his power. His citizens or subordinates may smile, applaud, or even praise him in the short term, but they will not respect him. And without respect, leadership is an illusion. Respect ensures obedience, love ensures only approval. A ruler who wishes to be loved makes himself vulnerable. Those under him, whether allies or enemies, will test his limits. They will push boundaries to see how far they can go without consequence. They will take liberties that a feared leader would never allow. They will deceive him, manipulate him, and exploit his desire to be liked. Love is earned in small measures but surrendered in large doses. People will love you until the moment it is inconvenient, uncomfortable, or threatening to their own interests. And when that moment comes, the love disappears, leaving the ruler exposed, powerless, and mocked. Contrast this with a ruler who prioritizes respect over affection. He understands that respect is built on consistent behavior, clear consequences, and the willingness to act decisively, even at the cost of popularity. Respect is rooted in fear, not the fear of harm, but the fear of unpredictability, of firmness, and of judgment. When a ruler commands respect, people obey because they recognize the authority behind his decisions, not because they hope for approval. Fear, when balanced with prudence, ensures stability, loyalty, and compliance. It is far more enduring than love, which is fleeting and fickle. History is filled with examples of rulers who sought to be loved above all else and paid the ultimate price. They were generous without thought of consequence, lenient without strategy, and indulgent without foresight. Their citizens adored them while they were in favor, but quickly turned against them in times of crisis. Their armies may have cheered their kind words, yet they failed to follow when decisive action was needed. Their ministers praised their benevolence while undermining their authority in secret. Love, in the absence of respect, is nothing more than a mask hiding weakness. To be loved is to be vulnerable. To be respected is to be secure. The wise ruler learns to balance these forces carefully. He appears benevolent when it strengthens his position, but acts ruthlessly when the demands of leadership require it. He understands that affection is a luxury, not a foundation. A leader can maintain some degree of popularity, but he cannot allow the desire for admiration to dictate his choices. Decisions must serve the state, protect his position, and ensure his authority, even if they earn him temporary dislike. A ruler's love-seeking behavior often leads to indecision. He fears making enemies and thus hesitates, delays, and compromises excessively. Indecision is a silent killer of leadership. Every moment a ruler waits to act, opportunity is lost, rebellion gathers, and the ambitious take advantage. Leaders who act decisively may earn temporary disdain, but they gain long-term authority. Those who wait for approval from all sides achieve nothing but chaos, weakness, and eventual overthrow. The desire to be loved blinds the mind to reality, forcing a ruler to imagine loyalty where there is only convenience, admiration where there is only self-interest, and affection where there is only calculation. Furthermore, the pursuit of love undermines perception. A ruler may seek to appear virtuous, generous, and forgiving, yet if these qualities are displayed solely to earn admiration, they reveal weakness. Those around him perceive the calculated kindness as manipulation, and manipulation without authority breeds contempt. People do not respect those they perceive as trying too hard to please. True authority comes not from approval, but from consistency, competence, and the capacity to act decisively, even when it is uncomfortable. To maintain power, a ruler must understand the psychology of those he governs. Citizens, subordinates, and rivals will act according to their own self-interest. They will flatter, deceive, and manipulate to gain advantage. A ruler who prioritizes love allows these manipulations to succeed because he fears upsetting anyone. A ruler who prioritizes respect understands that loyalty is not granted freely, it is commanded, maintained, and reinforced through action. Fear, tempered by fairness, ensures obedience without breeding unnecessary hatred. Ultimately, a leader's goal is stability, authority, and survival. Seeking love above all else jeopardizes all three. A ruler must appear virtuous, act decisively, and enforce rules firmly. He may be admired, but that admiration is incidental, not the guiding principle. His focus must be on ensuring his decisions serve the state, maintain power, and secure his position, even if these decisions temporarily earn disdain. By understanding that respect, not love, is the true foundation of authority, the ruler positions himself to navigate danger, command loyalty, and maintain control in a world where weakness is exploited and indecision is punished. Love is an unreliable ally. Respect is the fortress that shields a leader from betrayal, manipulation, and failure. A ruler who confuses the two, who allows affection to dictate action, will find that the very people he seeks to endear will abandon, undermine, or destroy him at the first sign of inconvenience. The wise ruler never confuses admiration with loyalty. He understands that to be feared moderately, to act decisively, and to command respect is to secure power far more effectively than seeking the fragile, fleeting, and treacherous approval of others. In the world of power, influence, and survival, speed and decisiveness often outweigh morality. History repeatedly demonstrates that those willing to act without hesitation, without overthinking the consequences for others, achieve far more than those who pause to consider what is right or just. The good, the moral, the virtuous, they hesitate, they weigh options, they analyze every consequence, they fear the fallout of their actions, and in doing so, they leave openings that the decisive exploit with merciless efficiency. Consider the man who hesitates to seize an opportunity because he fears causing harm. He worries about offending, about crossing invisible moral lines, about the judgment of others. He hesitates while the ambitious move. He hesitates while the cunning strike. Inaction, though morally comfortable, is fatal in the realm of power. The space between thought and action becomes a battlefield, and the good man enters it too late, watching others claim what should have been his, influence that should have been his, victories that should have been his. Evil men, or those whom society labels as ruthless, understand no such hesitation. They see obstacles as tools, weaknesses as opportunities, and indecision as a vulnerability to be exploited. They do not dwell on ethics if ethics conflict with advantage. They act swiftly, strategically, and without remorse. Their morality is flexible, guided not by principles, but by efficacy. This is why history often celebrates them not for goodness, but for results. They achieve, they conquer, they dominate, not because they are loved, but because they are decisive, fearless, and willing to do what others refuse to do. The hesitation of the good is also a form of vulnerability. When a moral man pauses to consider every ethical angle, he signals indecision to his rivals. Others read it as weakness. They recognize that while he fears making a mistake, they can act boldly without fear of judgment. This hesitation invites attacks, manipulation, and betrayal. Every moment spent considering whether an action is good or right is a moment the decisive use to secure advantage, to consolidate power, to remove threats, and to exploit weaknesses. In effect, moral hesitation is a silent surrender. The world does not pause for virtue. It does not slow its pace to accommodate morality. Fortune rewards boldness, strategy, and action, often regardless of ethical consequence. Those who act decisively, even if their actions are harsh or morally questionable, shape events, control outcomes, and seize opportunities. The good man, paralyzed by conscience, watches as fate is carved without him, powerless to intervene, powerless to claim his place. Hesitation is a luxury the virtuous cannot afford if they wish to survive or excel. The consequences of hesitation extend beyond personal loss. In leadership, a delayed decision can cost states, empires, and institutions. A general who waits for moral certainty loses battles to an enemy who strikes without doubt. A ruler who hesitates to punish wrongdoing allows corruption and rebellion to take root. A businessman who fears offending partners loses contracts to competitors who act swiftly and decisively. Hesitation breeds uncertainty, and uncertainty invites exploitation. The morally cautious, though well-intentioned, often become victims of the decisive, ruthless, and cunning. Furthermore, the hesitation of the good is often internalized as self-doubt. A moral person constantly questions their actions, wondering whether any step taken will harm others or violate principles. This self-questioning slows decision-making, undermines authority, and creates indecision visible to all. Meanwhile, those who act decisively radiate confidence, authority, and command. People are drawn to decisiveness because it signals competence and strength. Hesitation signals weakness. Good men, by pausing too long, forfeit the very respect and influence they hope to gain. It is also important to note that decisiveness does not inherently require cruelty or evil. It requires clarity of purpose and willingness to act when circumstances demand it. Yet the problem arises when the good man allows morality to override necessity. He refuses to act against wrongdoing even when inaction threatens greater harm. He forgives transgressions that must be punished. He delays measures essential for protection or progress. By prioritizing moral comfort over strategic action, he forfeits his position, his influence, and often his survival. This is why Machiavelli argued that a ruler or leader must learn when morality can be a tool and when it must yield to necessity. The decisive are often labeled as evil, but their effectiveness cannot be denied. They achieve, they secure, they dominate, and they are remembered. The moral, the hesitant, the virtuous, though praised for intent, often vanish quietly, overshadowed by those who had the courage to act. The world remembers results, not intentions. Hesitation, no matter how morally righteous, rarely secures outcomes. To survive and thrive, one must cultivate decisiveness without being constrained by fear of appearing immoral. This does not mean acting with malice, it means acting with purpose. When confronted with an opportunity, a threat, or a challenge, the decisive do not pause to consider how they will be judged. They act, calculate the impact, and adjust as needed. The good man hesitates because he fears judgment, and that fear is his undoing. The decisive fear only failure, and in their fearlessness they carve paths that others can only follow. In every sphere of life, politics, business, personal ambition, the pattern is clear. Action favors the bold, hesitation favors the cautious, and the world does not reward the cautious. Evil men, cunning and ruthless, often achieve more than the virtuous who wait. They strike first, consolidate power, and leave the hesitant scrambling to recover. Every moral pause is a lost opportunity, every overthought choice a window for exploitation. The cost of hesitation is not abstract, it is tangible: lost influence, lost advantage, and lost survival. The essential lesson is simple, yet difficult for the morally rigid to accept. To achieve, to protect, and to lead, one must act decisively. The good must learn the hard truth: hesitation is a silent surrender to those who act boldly, ruthlessly, and without fear. Inaction, even when morally justified, carries consequences far greater than any immediate moral discomfort. To survive in a world of opportunists, manipulators, and the ambitious, the good must reconcile with the fact that decisive action, not moral perfection, secures results. In the pursuit of power, influence, and survival, there exists a critical distinction between what one is and what one is perceived to be. Virtue in itself is rarely sufficient to secure authority, protect one's position, or command respect. What truly matters is reputation, the image others hold of you, the perception that shapes their actions, and the beliefs they carry about your character and strength. A man may be morally impeccable, generous, and just, yet if his reputation suggests weakness, indecision, or vulnerability, he is exposed to exploitation. Conversely, a man may act ruthlessly behind the scenes, but if he maintains the appearance of virtue, he gains loyalty, avoids unnecessary resistance, and consolidates power with subtlety and skill. Reputation is the currency of influence. People rarely interact with reality, they interact with perception. A ruler, a leader, or anyone in a position of authority cannot rely solely on their internal virtues, because those virtues remain invisible to others unless carefully displayed. The masses, colleagues, and adversaries judge actions and character based on observable behavior, not inner morality. A good reputation commands obedience, respect, and fear in calculated measure. A poor reputation invites contempt, defiance, and betrayal. This is why appearances must be managed deliberately. Appearances, however, must not be mistaken for mere deception. The wise understand that reputation is a reflection of controlled actions and strategic decisions. One must cultivate the perception of goodness, justice, and benevolence while exercising the freedom to act as necessity demands. In other words, the public should see virtue even when the private course of action requires ruthlessness. This duality is the art of survival and authority in a world governed by both ambition and self-interest. Those who cling to virtue without considering appearance risk both their influence and their safety. Consider the example of a ruler who is entirely virtuous in both action and perception. He punishes only when morally justified, rewards only when morally deserved, and acts with consistent openness. Such a ruler is predictable, and predictability in politics is a weakness. Adversaries, allies, and even subordinates understand the boundaries of his morality and learn to manipulate those boundaries. The virtuous ruler becomes a book written in plain language, easy for cunning minds to interpret, exploit, and circumvent. Meanwhile, a ruler who manages reputation carefully, appearing fair and just, can conceal the necessary ruthlessness behind an image of virtue, making him both respected and unassailable. The strategic management of reputation requires discernment. One must know when to display goodness and when to withhold it. Generosity can earn loyalty when it strengthens authority, but uncontrolled generosity can deplete resources and encourage entitlement. Mercy can win admiration when it stabilizes power, but excessive mercy can embolden rebellion. Reputation is strengthened not by absolute virtue but by consistent, calculated appearances. Those who fail to master this distinction find themselves admired superficially yet powerless when action is required. Reputation also protects a ruler from unnecessary confrontation. When people perceive a leader as principled, strategic, and wise, they hesitate before challenging him. They calculate the risks of opposition. If a ruler is known for moral courage, intelligence, or decisiveness, adversaries act cautiously. But if a ruler is admired privately but perceived publicly as weak, kind to a fault, or indecisive, opposition emerges quickly. emboldened by the visible gap between virtue and authority. Reputation thus serves as both shield and weapon, a social armor that reinforces stability and deters opportunism. Yet reputation is fragile and must be actively maintained. A single act contrary to the cultivated perception can undermine decades of careful impression. Therefore, the intelligent leader must act with subtlety, ensuring that even necessary ruthlessness aligns with the broader image of virtue. Punishments must be measured, decisions must be framed, and actions must be communicated in a way that preserves the perception of goodness. The public, subordinates, and rivals rarely scrutinize hidden motives. They respond to what is visible. Mastering this visible narrative is essential for long-term success. This concept extends beyond rulers to any individual navigating competitive environments. In business, reputation dictates partnerships, client trust, and influence over colleagues. In social hierarchies, it determines alliances, respect, and opportunity. A morally perfect individual may lose contracts, friends, or credibility if their actions suggest vulnerability or indecision. Conversely, someone who carefully cultivates the appearance of integrity and competence, even while exercising pragmatism behind the scenes, secures both trust and advantage. Perception allows one to operate with flexibility while minimizing resistance. Furthermore, reputation amplifies the effects of decisiveness. A leader perceived as strong and just can act ruthlessly without backlash, because his reputation frames the action as necessary, measured, or inevitable. Without reputation, even morally justified actions are questioned, and decisiveness becomes aggression in the eyes of others. Maintaining a respected reputation allows a leader to wield power effectively, ensuring that even controversial decisions reinforce authority rather than diminish it. The danger lies in confusing virtue with reputation. Moral goodness alone is insufficient. It is the perception of goodness that protects and empowers. People rarely evaluate internal virtue. They respond to external signals. A leader may act perfectly, yet if his reputation is weak, he will be exploited. A leader may act harshly, yet if his reputation commands respect and suggests fairness, he will retain loyalty. This is the delicate balance the intelligent individual must navigate, the appearance of virtue married to the freedom to act pragmatically. Reputation, in essence, is the public manifestation of calculated virtue. It allows a person to influence, to protect, and to survive in a world where actions are constantly scrutinized and morality is secondary to power. To succeed, one must master this art, cultivate the appearance of goodness, manage perception with precision, and act as necessity dictates. In this way, reputation becomes a tool, a shield, and a weapon, far more potent than virtue alone. In the harsh world of ambition, politics, and influence, survival is never guaranteed. Virtue alone is not a shield, kindness is not armor, and blind morality is often a liability. Those who insist on always acting good or moral, without considering consequence, place themselves at the mercy of others' cunning. Survival, in reality, requires a careful balance, the ability to act ruthlessly when necessary, tempered with calculation, foresight, and strategic restraint. The world rewards those who act decisively, not those who cling to unyielding ethical codes at their own expense. Blind morality, while comforting to the conscience, is a dangerous trap. The individual who refuses to harm, deceive, or manipulate even when circumstances demand it becomes predictable and vulnerable. Others quickly learn to exploit this rigidity. The world is filled with people willing to use, deceive, and dominate anyone who refuses to defend themselves. A person who acts solely according to strict moral principles may win admiration for intent, but admiration does not protect, feed, or elevate. Without the capacity for controlled ruthlessness, the morally rigid are left exposed, carrying the burden of their virtue, while others reap advantage. Controlled ruthlessness does not mean cruelty for its own sake. It is not mindless aggression or indiscriminate harm. It is the calculated application of force, manipulation, and decisiveness when necessary to protect oneself, secure objectives, or eliminate threats. It is the recognition that sometimes To preserve life, position, or influence, one must act in ways that morality alone would condemn. The key is control, ruthlessness applied strategically, in measured doses, with a clear purpose. Random cruelty without strategy is chaos, controlled ruthlessness is mastery. Consider the individual who refuses to act harshly against a rival out of moral hesitation. That rival, unconcerned with ethics, acts first. They seize opportunity, consolidate advantage, and remove obstacles. The hesitant person, though morally superior, is left scrambling to recover what has been lost. This is the fundamental principle. The world does not reward moral superiority, it rewards efficacy. Survival favors those who understand when to act decisively, when to be ruthless, and when to sacrifice temporary comfort for long-term security. Controlled ruthlessness is also about foresight. It is about anticipating threats and neutralizing them before they escalate. The wise recognize that minor concessions or unchecked leniency can embolden rivals, undermine authority, and create vulnerabilities. A leader or individual who acts too slowly, too gently, or too predictably allows others to exploit these openings. Ruthlessness, in this context, is preventive. It is the deliberate action that maintains stability and ensures survival in a world driven by competition and ambition. Furthermore, controlled ruthlessness is essential for maintaining authority and respect. Those who are weak, indecisive, or morally rigid invite defiance. Subordinates, allies, and rivals alike test boundaries, probing for weakness. To be respected is not to be feared blindly, but to demonstrate that there are consequences for actions that threaten your position or goals. This demonstration does not require indiscriminate cruelty, but it does require firmness and the willingness to act decisively when circumstances demand it. Respect, once lost, is nearly impossible to regain. Controlled ruthlessness preserves it. It is important to understand the psychology of those around you. People are driven by self-interest, ambition, and desire. They respond to action, not intention. Those who act ruthlessly when necessary, but with control, are often regarded as competent, decisive, and worthy of loyalty. Those who act with blind morality, refusing to harm even when survival requires it, are perceived as weak, indecisive, and exploitable. The world is not kind to good intentions, it rewards results. The capacity to wield ruthlessness selectively is not evil, it is practical intelligence, and it is essential for survival. Controlled ruthlessness also allows for strategic deception. Sometimes survival demands that one conceal true intentions, present a facade of benevolence, or manipulate circumstances without overt harm. The morally rigid may refuse to deceive, believing that honesty is paramount. Yet in competitive environments, honesty can be exploited. Strategic deception, employed judiciously, protects position, ensures influence, and allows for effective action without unnecessary conflict. Ruthlessness in this sense is as much about subtlety as it is about force. The individual who masters controlled ruthlessness understands timing, context, and proportionality. They know when inaction is dangerous, when force is required, and when patience serves better than aggression. They do not act out of emotion, vengeance, or impulsive desire. They act to preserve themselves and their objectives. Each action is calculated, deliberate, and purposeful. By contrast, blind morality is reactive. It responds to principle rather than reality. It acts without regard for consequence, leaving the moral individual vulnerable to exploitation by those who understand pragmatism. Moreover, controlled ruthlessness is essential for long-term survival. Life, leadership, and power are rarely static. Threats emerge unexpectedly, opportunities vanish in moments, and the balance of influence shifts constantly. Those unwilling to act decisively or ruthlessly when necessary are often swept aside. Survival is not about perfection in virtue. It is about adaptability, awareness, and the courage to do what is required to maintain position and protect interests. Controlled ruthlessness allows one to navigate danger, counter threats, and seize advantage without sacrificing strategic vision. The paradox is clear. Those who cling to morality at all costs risk everything, while those who embrace controlled ruthlessness safeguard their existence and authority. Survival demands that one prioritize results, stability, and security over pure ethical adherence. This does not mean abandoning virtue entirely, it means subordinating it to necessity. One may appear virtuous publicly, uphold ethical principles when practical, and maintain moral integrity when it does not threaten survival. But when action is required, ruthlessness, measured, precise, and controlled, becomes the tool that ensures continuity, influence, and success. In a world where others act without restraint, hesitation, or moral qualms, survival is impossible for the purely moral. The wise understand that controlled ruthlessness is not a betrayal of virtue, but a recognition of reality. The world is competitive, often harsh, and rarely forgiving of idealism untempered by strategy. Those who survive, thrive, and lead are those who master this delicate balance, wielding ruthlessness with discretion while maintaining the appearance of virtue, ensuring that their position, power, and influence remain secure, even when circumstances demand actions morality alone would forbid. In the pursuit of power, influence, and survival, pure goodness alone is a liability. The world is not ruled by virtue but by strategy, decisiveness, and perception. Those who hesitate, who prioritize love over respect, who act morally without calculation, are exploited, overshadowed, and defeated by those who act boldly and strategically. Reputation matters more than virtue, and controlled ruthlessness, tempered by prudence, is essential for survival. To navigate life effectively, one must appear virtuous, act decisively, and embrace the hard truth. Results, not intentions, determine success. The wise learn to balance morality with pragmatism, cultivating respect, mastering perception, and applying ruthlessness only when necessary, for in this balance lies true power, security, and lasting influence.